The morning rush at Rosie's Diner was always a blur of coffee cups, sizzling bacon, and chatter. But for Emily, the quiet moments before sunrise were sacred. That's when she'd unlock the door, switch on the lights, and breathe in the comforting scent of brewed coffee filling the air. But what truly made her morning special wasn't the coffee. It was her. The frail old woman who sat by the window every single day at 6:30 a.m., wrapped in a faded lavender shawl, her silver hair neatly tied back, her smile soft yet distant, as if it carried 1,000 untold stories. No one knew her name. She never ordered more than a cup of black coffee and a slice of toast, always paying an exact change. But Emily had noticed. The woman's hands trembled more each week, her steps slower, her clothes thinner when the mornings grew cold. So one day, Emily quietly began adding a warm bowl of oatmeal beside her toast. When the woman tried to protest, Emily smiled. On the house. You remind me of my grandma. She never let me skip breakfast, so now I'm not letting you. The woman chuckled, the kind of laugh that felt like sunlight breaking through a storm. From that morning on, their silent bond grew. Emily would bring her extra butter, sometimes a small flower from the counter vase. In return, the woman would share stories in fragments. A lost son, a life once filled with luxury, and a heart that had learned to live with loneliness. Emily never asked for more. She simply listened. Because sometimes, kindness doesn't need questions, just presence. Before we dive deeper, if you believe small acts of kindness can change lives, take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe to Whispers of Kindness. Let's spread warmth together. Days turned into weeks, and Emily began to look forward to that familiar smile each morning. Even on her hardest days, when bills piled up or her landlord reminded her rent was due, the old woman's presence was like an anchor, a reminder that goodness still existed in the world. But one morning, everything changed. The diner was unusually quiet. The old woman's seat, her seat, by the window was empty. Emily waited, checking the clock again and again. 7:30, 8. Nothing. She told herself not to worry. Maybe she was unwell, maybe she'd come later. But when a week passed with no sign of her, Emily couldn't shake the ache in her chest. Until the 10th morning. The bell above the diner door jingled, and in walked not one but 4 tall men in black suits. Their expressions were cold, their movements sharp and synchronized. Behind them followed 2 women dressed in tailored suits, carrying files and leather briefcases. The air in the diner shifted instantly. Customers turned, whispering. Emily froze behind the counter, her hand still holding a coffee pot mid-pour. The older of the 2 lawyers stepped forward. Are you Emily Carter? Her voice was steady, but Emily's heart thundered in her chest. Yes, I am. Did something happen? The lawyer exchanged a glance with the bodyguards before speaking softly. We're here on behalf of Mrs. Margaret Langford. The name struck her like lightning. Margaret, that was her, the old woman she'd served every morning. Emily's breath caught. Is she okay? The lawyer nodded. Mrs. Langford passed away peacefully 2 nights ago, but before she did, she left specific instructions that we find you. Emily's hands trembled. Me? Why me? The lawyer opened a folder and slid a sealed letter across the counter. She said you'd understand once you read this. With shaky fingers, Emily opened the envelope. Inside was a handwritten note, her name penned with delicate strokes. My dear Emily, you reminded me that kindness still exists. Not for gain, not for glory, but from the heart. I once had everything, wealth, status, a mansion filled with laughter. But life took it all, one by one, until I was left only with silence. You gave me back something priceless. Humanity. Warmth. Care. You didn't know who I was, yet you treated me as if I mattered. For that, I will forever be grateful. By the time you read this, I will have gone home. But I want you to have what I no longer need, a second chance at life. My lawyers will explain everything. With love, Margaret Langford. Tears blurred Emily's vision. She pressed the letter to her heart, whispering, Oh, Mrs. Langford. The younger lawyer cleared her throat gently. Mrs. Langford owned a series of properties across the city. One of them, a small cafe by the lake, she's left entirely to you, along with a trust fund to help you manage it. Emily blinked in disbelief. That can't be real. I just gave her breakfast. I just listened. The lawyer smiled faintly. Sometimes that's all it takes. The entire diner was silent, watching as the men handed her a folder of documents, deeds, signatures, legal seals. It felt unreal, like a dream she might wake up from any second. When the bodyguards and lawyers left, Emily sank into the nearest chair, tears streaming freely now. The sunlight through the window caught the corner of Mrs. Langford's note, making it glow as if the old woman's presence still lingered there. That afternoon, Emily drove out to see the cafe. It stood quietly by the lake, surrounded by willows and gentle waves brushing against the dock. The sign above the door read, Second Chances Cafe. Inside, the air smelled like coffee and nostalgia. Framed pictures of smiling faces, employees, customers, maybe even family, lined the walls. On the counter, under a glass dome, sat a small photograph. Emily lifted it, heart skipping a beat. It was Mrs. Langford, younger, radiant, laughing beside a little boy. Her son, perhaps. On the back, written in faded ink, were the words, Everyone deserves a second chance at happiness. As tears rolled down her cheeks, Emily whispered, I'll keep your kindness alive, Mrs. Langford. I promise. And she did. Months later, Second Chances Cafe reopened, not just as a business, but as a home for those who needed warmth, hope, or a simple meal they couldn't afford. Emily placed a single lavender flower on the counter every morning, a silent tribute to the woman who had changed her life without even meaning to. Customers came, stories were shared, laughter returned, and somehow, every time the morning light hit that corner table by the window, Emily swore she saw a faint reflection of a woman smiling back, shawl and all. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Whispers of Kindness. Every small act of compassion can echo louder than you imagine, because in the end, it wasn't the lawyers, or the bodyguards, or even the inheritance that changed Emily's life. It was one cup of coffee, shared with kindness. And that, more than anything, was the legacy Mrs. Langford left behind.